Well, greetings, friends. Very warm welcome to this Leo full moon meditation meeting from the Lucis Trust, the sun and the sign of Leo. Radiation from the physical sun, from the heart of the sun, and from the central spiritual sun pours onto earth and into the psyche of the human family in an endless rhythm. This is depicted for us as we look up at the night sky and we see the monthly rhythm of the waxing and the waning moon. In the darkness of night, the full moon is really something to celebrate. It's a beautiful sight. It's been incredible here. I don't know if you have it in the city, but with the smoke, with the pollution of the air that's coming from the fires in Canada, the moon has a real red look to it, this full moon. Yet as esotericists, we understand that the beauty and the majesty of what we're seeing during the full moon doesn't come from the moon, which symbolizes the worlds of matter and personality, but instead it comes from the sun's light reflected off the face of the moon onto the earth. For humanity and the earth, the power of the sun is at its peak at the full moon, stimulating all the energetic dynamics of the human psyche, including soul and spirit, and of the occult life embedded within the matter of the earth. Leo is the sign of the sun, and it's also the sign when all the powerful energies of the sun shine into the human sense of the self, symbolized by the lion, that young lion who roars out of a self-absorbed sense of its own power, and the more mature, noble lion king, whose serene otherworldly presence carries the sovereignty and authority of the higher self. Leo invites us to consider the individualization, the development and empowerment of the personality, alongside the development and growth of a deeper sense of I embedded within the personality. This is the I as that, as the universal I of the soul on its own plane and of the spirit. The noble, wise and serene Lion King has a powerful role to play in humanity's transition into the Aquarian age. Esoterically, it brings us into the orbit of Sirius, the dog star, that brightest light in the solar system. For members of our planetary hierarchy, the star of sensitivity is a central spiritual presence, ruling each of the ashrams, guiding and marking the way forward for all higher initiates making up the Great White Lodge. Sirian energy magnetizes the principle of freedom for the masters. So different from the principle of freedom as we face it ourselves, challenging the masters to enter into deeper responsibilities and bringing with it the difficulties, tests, and trials that they must pass through before moving on to greater freedom. Our work together during these full moon meditations is to stand as a group before the light of life, of hierarchy, and of the plan. It's as if we are standing before that which is the central, unchanging truth of self, standing before the Lion King in all its magnificence, and doing so as a group. Month after month, year after year, decade after decade, we can imagine that the group mind has become a unified field, a unitary consciousness transparently open to the wisdom and light pouring through hierarchy. We've had a lot of time to practice. During these full moon festivals, it's as if the group mind becomes a container and a carrier of that light. This is not to imply any separation from our fellow human beings. After all, it includes and embraces the minds and hearts of all who stand at the esoteric center of the new group of world servers. And as such, as a group, we form a part of the great chain of hierarchy that has its base in the human kingdom, our kingdom, and that reaches up to the heights of the planetary head center Shambhala through the planetary hierarchy, which is also part of our kingdom. Standing before the greater light of the spiritual hierarchy and of life itself, the real magic of the full moon work occurs when the group makes its turns its back on the light to face humanity. For this turning is the result of a love of humanity and a sense of relationship with and of being a part of the entirety of the human species in all its groupings of nations, spiritualities, fields of service, and degrees of individualization. We lose the magic of turning on the pedestal of light when we take that love, the group's love, for granted. The love of humanity and the tenderness of the group heart towards all fellow human beings and beyond towards all sentient beings with the incarnated evolving worlds of time and space. This is all important in esoteric work. It's fundamental. And it's the power of this love that enables the group, or rather causes the group, forces the group to turn its attention away from the great center of absorption of light, to actually turn its back on the incoming light, so as to gaze out upon the world of relationships and actually see as a group the pulsing presence of that light within the gritty realities of the world as each one of us experiences it in the time and space of today. As the light from beyond shines through the group, it becomes possible to notice echoes of that same light arising from within the world of the human. The very substance of our humanity responds to the light pouring in from the physical sun, from the heart of the sun, and even in certain fields of human thought and activity, from the central spiritual sun. This incoming radiatory light has the effect of uplifting and inspiring consciousness, as well as of disturbing the status quo. The full moon work, then, becomes about the group witnessing something of this light arising in humanity. And by the very act of witnessing or observing that light in humanity, we help it become more fully conscious, more present in the intellectual life and the thought life of the species, and we help it become less mutable and more fixed into human nature. One of the ways that we can observe the rising light in humanity today is to consider a statement made by the Tibetan at the start of his comments about Leo in the book of Esoteric Astrology, when he writes of a point of crisis in the transition of humanity into the Aquarian age. Leo is the polar opposite of Aquarius, and the interplay of energies between these two is far more potent than at any previous time in racial history. And we should just note and remember that when he's referring to racial history, of course, he's referring to the history of the human race. In this year of a centennial conclave, and when the transition into the Aquarian age is characterized by what we might think of as a particularly rough patch, it's helpful to look at what is happening to the power of the sun in the Leo sense in the human community. As the Tibetan has said elsewhere in esoteric astrology, Leo is frequently described as the battlefield of the forces of materialism and the forces of light. It's really something. Leo, the sense of self. And earlier in the book, that this battlefield takes place as the Leo type reacts in a new and unique manner to the profit opportunity presented by incoming Aquarian energies. The brash, larger-than-life, dramatic line of separation is clearly present, strongly present in today's world, playing its role as a destructive force that's so easy to see in all areas of activity, from finance to entertainment to media, religion, health, AI and corporations, politics and governance. Commenting on the Leo battlefield, DK notes that it is occultly regarded as one of the most material signs, inasmuch as selfish desire for possession of material objectives can be peculiarly present, and the display of the possessive spirit can violently control. But what of the building force, this other aspect of the deeper, more universal lion, who lifts and leads the World Servers Group into its higher potential? We don't see the full picture if we don't also look for this other lion. And DK notes, the advanced Leo person can function as the inspired spiritual sacrifice. He is then sensitive to world conditions and freed from personal desires. The vision to come of changes to come in the Aquarian age, and the hope that this vision inspires, requires something as fundamental as a change of human nature, and particularly a change in the dominant sense of self. So Leo is key to the transition into the Aquarian age. Let's pause for our reflection with the words of the Gayatri as it directs us to center the group in the call for the face of the true spiritual sun to be unveiled to us, so that we can know the truth, and as a result, so that we can then do our whole duty. O thou, who givest sustenance to the universe, from whom all things proceed, to whom all things return, unveil to us the face of the true spiritual sun, hidden by a disk of golden light, that we may know the truth and do our whole duty as we journey to thy sacred feet. Whatever else it does, the Gayatri reflects a timeless cry from the depths of despair of the weary pilgrim. And it really is a call for our time. For the reality of our humanity is that we're a mix of soul and personality. Spirit and matter are fluid in our nature, and we are, as a kingdom, all of us, in nature, mutable, almost by definition. Yet, the very substance of human nature is changing. And this is what the transition into a new age signifies. And so while we're naturally mutable in our nature, we are also in certain ways in process of becoming stable and fixed into a more evenly balanced relationship between spirit and matter, a new relationship. In esoteric terms, we might say that there is a collective shift in the group of servers, trending from the mutable cross towards the fixed cross of discipleship. And part of our very humanity is our learning to observe and to see this. Another way of looking at this is to take heart from the fact that the horizontal arm of the Christian symbol of the cross is in process of movement. There is a dynamism, a muscular dynamism to its move upwards on the vertical arm towards a more balanced position. We are, it seems to me, living at a time of significant momentum in this movement from the Piscean cross into the even-armed cross of Aquarius. While most may not see this muscular movement taking place within consciousness, only noticing the chaos and crisis accompanying that movement, it's important for those of us who do see it to clarify our understanding of what it is that we see so that we can better communicate that understanding to others, to our kingdom, our human kingdom. The plan is a living momentum in the development and maturing of all who are treading the path in all professions and disciplines of research and thought, and in the affairs of all nations and all peoples. This living dynamism of the plan can perhaps be understood best if we think in terms of the human condition observed by hierarchy when they meet every 100 years in their centennial conclave. For us human beings, 100 years is a really long time. We give so much attention to the meta-crisis of the current time that we tend to forget the degree to which the Aquarian sense of relationship, with its spirit of sharing and cooperation, has developed and expanded in humanity over the past 100 years. We tend to focus more on the inevitable glamours of Aquarius that have accompanied that transition, or on all the glamours of Pisces, seeing the problems highlighted, resisting the new, opposing realistic changes in our relations with the environment, opposing efforts to mold international relations around norms of interdependence and multilateralism. In focusing on daily events and the daily news with all its incredible overstimulation, it's as if we lose the big picture. So much has unfolded in humanity's response to the outgoing energies of Pisces and the incoming energies of Aquarius since that last big conclave in 1925. And our work as esotericists is to seek to be a part of the anchoring and expression of the higher qualities of Aquarius, its universality, its sense of relationship, and general distribution of qualities, physical and spiritual assets, professional skills, and distributed wealth in every sense. Leo draws attention to the central role of identity in this transition, and it invites us to consider both the impact of an increasingly potentized and highly stimulated self, anchored in it and fixed in its separateness, and a newly emerging yet equally potentized and simulated self, centered in its sense of interrelationship, oneness, and the wholeness of things. While preparing this talk, I was struck by an article posted just a couple of days ago this week by Otto Scharmer, founder of the Presencing Institute at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's a long essay, which is essentially a meditation on the nature of collapsing and shifting paradigms. There's much in it, but one of the key takeaways for me from this article is a reflection on the systemic ruptures and shifts that occurred during the period roughly 1989 to 2001, During that time, he writes, we saw the collapse of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the Soviet Union in 1991, the apartheid regime in South Africa in 1994, and a little later, New York's Twin Towers on September the 11th, 2001. Sharma writes that very few observers, commentators, and thinkers, including grassroots activists and leaders of movements for change in Eastern Europe, predicted the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the subsequent events. There was a collective belief that the wall would remain in place for at least another generation or two. Sharma's comment is that sometimes the very people who are instrumental in affecting major historical shifts have no idea what impact their work is about to unleash, mainly because they somehow internalized an illusion of their own insignificance. This can be applied to today's world, particularly when thinking of the enormous growth that's occurred in a rising new planetary awareness and consciousness of the Earth, a sensing that reflects the higher spirit of Leo and the identification of self with the wholeness of life and with the wholeness underlying interpenetrating ecologies, cultures, and faiths. We grossly underestimate the power of this rising spirit of wholeness and the impact this is having on the sense of self in humanity when we observe the polycrisis of this time solely in terms of the cut and thrust of current events. Sharma goes on to explore paradigm ruptures and shifts that have occurred over the past 100 years or so, reflecting on parallels between the situation in the early 20th century, when a period of relatively stable peace in Europe ended with the outbreak of the First World War, and continued through the conflagration of the Second World War. This first half of the 20th century was, he said, like crossing a threshold. 100 years of relative peace and security in Europe, the previous century, collapsed into all the violence and disruption of the world wars, with all of its intensity and reaching into the family of nearly every single human family on Earth. The institutional leaders of the time, Sharma notes, sleepwalked into World War I. Yet the destruction of the war period, he says, also planted the seeds for a new order that after 1945 materialized with remarkable speed and ease. The war was followed by this incredible period of decolonization, formation of new nations, new multilateral institutions, and, in his quote, democratic empowerment at a scale previously unseen. And from an esoteric perspective, we might see this as humanity's response to the crisis presented by hierarchy following the 1925 Centennial Conclave. And the Tibetan's writings, in fact, the whole of the sort of Tibetan teaching is devoted to the response of disciples and those on a discipleship path to this crisis. There's much more to Sharma's article, but for our purposes in preparing for this Leo full moon, the point is more to emphasize that we shouldn't underestimate the potential for dramatic and initiatory changes to occur in the world in coming decades following this year's hierarchical conclave and the presentation, which it will involve the presentation to humanity of a spiritual crisis that will contain all the opportunities and seeds needed for the breakthrough into a new order, and that we can surmise will also provide all the opportunities and the energy, what Teilhard refers to as resonance. There's a particular word Teilhard de Chardin uses in relation to energy, the energy which inspires conscience, which inspires soul, which fuels human transformation. So we can imagine, as a result of this conclave and of the crisis presented, the impact that will have on the discipleship path in humanity. This is where we need to be standing with this huge, strong, new discipleship community. The interplay between Leo and Aquarius is playing itself out in a deepening sense of self and a sense of what it means to be a human being. So let us work now in meditation with all the potentials and possibilities that the newly emerging higher self is bringing to humanity. We'll work with a full moon approach to the hierarchy. This time of the full moon is a period when spiritual energies are uniquely available. With the keynote, he who faces the light stands within its radiance, and stands within its radiance, is blinded to the issues of the world of men. He passes on the lighted way to the great center of absorption. But he who feels the urge to pass that way, yet loves his brother on the darkened path, revolves upon the pedestal of light and turns the other way. He faces towards the dark, and then the 7 points of light within himself transmit the outward streaming light, and lo, the face of those upon the darkened way receives that light. For them, the way is not so dark. Behind the warriors, twixt the light and dark, blazes the light of hierarchy. Group fusion. We affirm the fact of group fusion and integration within the heart center of the group of world servants, mediating between hierarchy and humanity. I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. Alignment. We project a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the planetary heart, and towards the Christ at the heart of hierarchy. And we extend the line of light towards Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. The higher interlude. We hold the contemplative mind open to the extraplanetary energies streaming into Shambhala and radiated through hierarchy. Using the creative imagination, endeavor to see the three planetary centers, Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity, coming into alignment and into play. Meditation. We reflect on the seed thought for Leo. I am that, and that am I. Precipitation. Visualize the energies of light, love, and the will to good pouring throughout the planet and becoming anchored on Earth in prepared physical plane centers through which the plan is manifesting. Work with a sixfold progression of divine love as a sequence of energy precipitation. Shambhala, hierarchy, the Christ, the group of world servers, men and women of goodwill everywhere in the world, myriad physical centers of distribution. The lower interlude. Refocus the consciousness as a group within the periphery of the great ashram. In the center of all love, I stand. From that center, I, the soul, will outward move. From that center, I, the one who serves, will work. May the love of the divine self be shed abroad, in my heart, through my group, and throughout the world. Visualize the downpouring spiritual inflow released from Shambhala through hierarchy, streaming into humanity through the prepared channel. And consider how these inpouring energies are establishing the pathway of light for the coming world teacher, the Christ. Distribution. As the great invocation is sounded, visualize the outpouring of light and love and power from the spiritual hierarchy through the 5 planetary inlets of London, Darjeeling, New York, Geneva, Tokyo, radiating the consciousness of the whole human race. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So thank you, friends. The actual time of the full moon here in New York time, it'll keep us alert. Those who will follow it, 3:55 a.m. tomorrow morning, 5 to 4. Yes, that's right. So those who join then, that's wonderful. And remember a 5-day cycle. So this energy continuing to flow through the next 2 days. The next Lucis Trust meeting, which you're welcome to be part of in this full moon cycle, is a new moon meeting on August the 22nd, another Friday, with the theme, an intriguing theme, From the Far Country. And then the full moon in Virgo, the next month's full moon on a Saturday, September the 6th at 3 p.m. here in the New York office of the Lucis Trust. Thank you, friends, and good evening.